The average Canadian family has so far this year been working to pay off their taxes. And today is Tax Freedom Day, meaning the money earned by the average family for the rest of the year won't be going towards any government taxes. That is, if a family earns around $140,000 a year, they'll pay roughly 46% in total taxes, or around $65,000. For more on this story, we're joined live by Jake Fuss, who is an Associate Director of Fiscal Studies at the Fraser Institute. Jake, thank you so much for joining us today. Let's break down exactly what we're talking about. We pay different taxes depending on where we live. So how exactly do you go about calculating this?
Yes. So in addition to paying personal income taxes, we also pay a number of less visible or more hidden taxes, whether that's property taxes, carbon taxes, sales taxes. And what we essentially do at Fraser Institute is we calculate Tax Freedom Day, which is the day in the year where the average family has earned enough income to pay all the taxes imposed on it by various levels of government, federal, provincial, and local levels. So we add up the total amount of those different taxes and then ultimately divide it by the total income for the average Canadian family. And what we find this year is that the average Canadian family is currently spending about 46.1% of its income on all these total taxes that they pay.
And of course, again, this does vary province by province tax-wise. So where does Ontario rank in the list of other provinces? Which ones had less, which ones had more?
Yeah, so Ontario falls really in the middle of the pack right now. So their Tax Freedom Day falls on June 18th, which was yesterday on Sunday. So the average Ontarian family currently spends roughly 46% of its income on total taxes in Canada. But we have seen this increase for the tax bill for Ontarian families from compared to 2019. The average Ontarian family actually spent about 44 to 45% of its income on taxes at that time before COVID. So we've now seen this increase over time. The latest Tax Freedom Day in Canada currently falls in Quebec on June 30th. So families there generally pay higher tax rates than other provinces right now. And the earliest Tax Freedom Day in Canada actually falls in Manitoba on June 6th.
And you talked about our tax bill growing here in Ontario since the pre-pandemic and post-pandemic levels. Can we expect that to continue rising as the years go on?
One of the concerns right now is that governments across Canada, especially during COVID, were accumulating significant amounts of debt. And ultimately, this is one way of kind of kicking the can down the road, and the bill comes due later. So unfortunately, that means that future taxes could actually go up for Ontarian families and for Canadians at large. So we're expecting, in the future, for instance, Tax Freedom Day could fall later in the year than what we're currently accustomed to. So that's certainly one of the concerns, right now with both federal deficits and some of the spending that's been going on in Ontario as well over the last number of years. We could see those future tax increases for average Ontarian families.
And we know we're speaking about the average family here in Canada, $140,000 a year, but we do know a lot of people are low income or are struggling to make payments like rent or pay for food. So what do these findings mean for those people in those situations?
Yes, so the circumstances are definitely different for, depending on what income bracket you're in. But one of the things that we've looked at too over time is when we compare basic necessities, so things like food, shelter, and clothing, families in Canada are generally spending actually more on taxes. So if we look at the average family, for instance, they're generally spending, about 36% of their income going towards basic necessities, like that food and housing and clothing combined. But taxes are actually the single biggest expense for families in Canada right now. This is a trend that we've seen for quite some time. And with that tax bill rising fast right now, even though cost of living is certainly top of mind for many Canadians, we're also seeing this increase in taxes for Canadian families really across the board right now as well.
All right, a lot of information there. Jake Fuss with the Fraser Institute. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.